All right, back to the video. I went and watched my last video and the sound was working just fine. I'm not sure if the viewer I was talking to had some setting off on his computer. But I was just thinking that here in the United States, if we ever had any sort of concentration camp, which I hope we don't, but the way things are going, we might. Well, we do actually. We do have prisons that operate like concentration camps did in the 1960s. But if we do, I would imagine we would force feed people to death first before we thought about starving anybody to death, because it's just not in our nature to even think about starving. Oh, that's such a luxury, right? If you try to starve yourself, people are gonna hospitalize you and force feed you, right? For some bizarre reason, even though it feels so good. I can't tell you how many times people got concerned for me when I was fasting. I did an 84-hour fast one time, and the reason I went that long is after you get 48 hours under your belt, you keep telling yourself you would hate to eat now and throw away all this effort, and you keep going and you keep going. Unfortunately, eventually you get delirious and you kind of accidentally eat at the end. That's usually what causes a long fast like that to break. You get delirious almost, and you forget what you're doing. Otherwise, I wish I could lock myself up with no food. I mean, I would still want to stay connected with the world, and I still want to go out and socialize. That's the problem, right? And then you get delirious after 70 some hours and you eat, right? That's the big problem. But here on Earth, if you abuse your food, I think in heaven you're going to be made to force feed. I really do. And there is one person in particular that I would love to see being force fed into oblivion. I'm not going to say names here, but we got some disagreements about eating patterns, and it was part of the reason why I quit my last job. I want to see him in hell being force fed and suffer, not die instantly, but suffer. I would so love to see that. Uh, I'm sure there are people in your lives that. How about anybody? Any of the terrorists that are on death row right now, which one would you love to see force fed to death? Leave a comment on here. We need to bring back some kind of. I would much rather see that than other forms of capital punishment. Let's put it that way, right? But it will probably happen in hell anyway. You'll be force fed to death if you don't appreciate your food down here on Earth. Please appreciate it. Take smaller bites. Here's how I like to visualize it. Pretend over there in a big pile is all the food you can have in the rest of your life. The slower you eat it, the longer you live, and it's all there for you, sitting for you. If you take a bite every day instead of 3 meals a day, it'll sit there for you for 10,000 years, 100,000 years. It will sit right there for you. Pretend that were the case. Would you still want to stuff that burger or that pizza down your throat? Would you? Would you still be concerned that maybe next year we'll have inflation and we might have to cut back on the luxuries a little bit? That would be a footnote more than a crisis, right? But again, there's that big pile of food. It might be, let's see, I would say it might be a 20 million calories, 30 million calories big, sitting right there, all for you. Take as much time as you want. Take as much time as you want. The slower you finish it, the more time you have here on Earth, right? And also, I'm only hurting myself if I eat fast or I eat unhealthy. No, you're not. You're setting up an environment where it becomes comfortable to do that for everybody else. So actually, the person that I want to be force fed to death, he eats like that. He expects everybody else to eat like that. You set up an example of that, right? And unfortunately, it seems like everybody has their own excuse for why they need to take those big bites. Yesterday, I was at a restaurant, and so I was like, gee, I think you should savor your food probably. I mean, it's not going anywhere. And he said he had to rush back home to a 4-year-old child. You know, his mother, the child's mother, isn't all that great or something like that. And then you got other people who stuff their face in order to do whatever garbage that they need to do, right? I'm sure the child could use a few moments of a different parent, but for some reason, don't get married if you're not going to trust your spouse with your kids, please. All right, I really have to walk away from that guy because it evokes so many bad emotions of mine. The whole marriage idea, the whole binge eating idea problem. Those people need to burn in hell. Really, they need to go to hell with a spouse that they'll really hate and they can't leave for whatever reason, and they need to be force fed 10 times a day. All right, all right. This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum